assistance to be here in Brisbane safe and secure. Secondly, I would like to salute the organizers and sponsors for their effort and dedication that brought us together to this prominent event. Pigmalo Aubito, meaning thank you so much to the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise for choosing and sponsoring me to be a part of this remarkable event. It gives me great pleasure as a Pacific Islander to be here from a small island country and to share with you a story from my country, the Kingdom of Tonga, on a given topic, the human side of cyber incidents. Background information for those who don't know much about Tonga. Kingdom of Tonga is a small archipelago in the South Pacific Ocean, located southeast of Fiji, Samoa, and 200 kilometers northeast of Auckland, New Zealand, and 3,280 kilometers east of Brisbane. Tonga has 176 islands, and 36 of them are inhabited, with a total populations of 100,179 in 2021 census. Most of the Tongan population lives in the 3 major groups, and nearly 3/4 live on Tongatapu Island, which is the main island. The Kingdom of Tonga is small, and the presence of technology has changed the way people communicate, work, and interact. Whether it is through access to government services via internet, interactions via social media, and mobile technologies, or receiving all when requested, technology is being employed as an enabler to build and to strengthen services. Therefore, the government of Tonga present the Tonga's digital strategic framework for 2019 to 2024. The strategy sets the directions for the government's use of information and communication technology with the ultimate intent to improve government decision-making, business process, and workflow efficiency, improving the quality of timeliness of services for the people of Tonga, while reducing the complexity and cost of government services. Security of physical ICT infrastructure, protections of personal and privacy information, and protections of national critical data are fundamental to all digital government strategic goals. The digital government security requirements flow several security principles, including protection of confidential information, ensuring the integrity of data and information, and ensuring accessibility of information to those with a valid need to know and proper security authentications and authorization. With the Kingdom of Tonga, population is important to measure the amount of threats cybersecurity poses or impact our people. Due to isolations and limited resources, there is a need to build resilience towards these impacts. About me, my name is Pelenita Atoa, also known as Brenda. I am a civil servant for the government of Tonga for 19 years now. Previously, I worked as an assistant inspector for 4 years, then was promoted to senior cooperative assistant for 9 years, and assistant secretary for 1 year, all in the Ministry of Trade and Economic Development. I am currently work for Tonga's computer emergency response team that operates under the Ministry of Many Names. Ministry of Meteorology, Energy, Information, Disaster Management, Environment, Climate Change and Communication, and CERT. As the Senior Engagement Officer, leading our engagement and administration site for 5 years now. Other experience, and most of them are voluntary. In 2020, I was on a secondment program to the Interim Pacific Fusion Center in Canberra, supposed to be a 3 months, but due to COVID-19, I was locked down there for 10 months before returning home. I am currently an executive member of Tonga Women in ICT, a Get Safe Online ambassador for Tonga, as well as a Baha'i Faith Study Circle cluster coordinator, and also an auxiliary assistant auxiliary board member for the Western District. For this presentation, I will focus on the background information about CERT Tonga, ransomware attack in Tonga, and the way forward. Tonga's Computer Emergency Response Team was established and effective via a cabinet decisions on July 15, 2016. And as I have mentioned before, CERT operates under the Ministry of Maytech. We currently have 3 established staff members, 2 males and 1 female. Remember, these 3 staff members are looking after the cybersecurity issue and all cybersecurity related matters for the entire nation. Other than that, recently we have 1 voluntary staff, but she is now moved to do new opportunities. And that is something that we encourage students in some of our tertiary institutes in Tonga to know and think of CERT. Tonga is happy and available to offer them internship opportunity if they wish to develop their skills in cybersecurity. We also have 3 additional staff that we will be recruiting soon under a project between CERT Tonga and the Ministry of Innovations and Trade of New Zealand, known as Cybersecurity Workforce Development Program. This year, we are blessed and lucky to have extra hands and assist our team from the media team that they previously under the information department, because they are now under the care and management of CERT Tonga Director. CERT Tonga work towards the visions, a safe and secure digital environment for the Kingdom of Tonga and its citizens. So as a mission to coordinate and collaborate among stakeholders to prevent through public awareness, detect and manage cyber threats in the Kingdom of Tonga. In the next slide, there is a short video that provides more information about CERT Tonga, so please bear with me.
Information and communication sectors in Tonga have developed significantly over the years, but the vulnerabilities to ICT-related incidents also increased. Tonga have come a long way in developing its ICT sector to where it is today. Since the arrival of the fiber optic cable in 2013, Tonga's internet penetration rate rose rapidly. Despite this development, Tonga's vulnerability to incidents such as hacking, identity theft, phishing, virus, and scams increased. To combat and reduce those vulnerabilities and criminalize the misuse of computers, mobile phones, and internet, the Tongan government established Tonga National Computer Emergency Response Team to address and respond to computer incidents, raise awareness, and build-in capacity of ICT personnel. The Prime Minister of Tonga at the time, Honorable Samuela Akilisi Bohiva, launched CERT Tonga in July 2016 under the Ministry of Maytech, with a vision to build a safe and secure digital environment for the Kingdom of Tonga and its citizens. Its mission is to coordinate and collaborate amongst the stakeholders to prevent through public awareness, detect, and manage cyber threats in the Kingdom of Tonga. The roles of CERT Tonga include the operations of CERT Tonga is guided by CERT.TO board, consists of MADEC, Attorney General's Office, Tonga Cable Limited, Tonga Communication.
It's up there. No. It's right there.
Technology.
Information and communication sectors in Tonga have developed significantly over the years, but the vulnerabilities to ICT-related incidents also increased. Tonga have come a long way in developing its ICT sector to where it is today. Since the arrival of the fiber optic cable in 2013, Tonga's internet penetration rate rose rapidly. Despite this development, Tonga's vulnerability to incidents such as hacking, identity theft, phishing, virus, and scams increased. To combat and reduce those vulnerabilities and criminalize the misuse of computers, mobile phones, and internet, the Tongan government established Tonga National Computer Emergency Response Team to address and respond to computer incidents, raise awareness, and build-in capacity of ICT personnel. The Prime Minister of Tonga at the time, Honorable Samuela Akilisi-Bohiva, launched CERT Tonga in July 2016 under the Ministry of MADEC with a vision to build a safe and secure digital environment for the Kingdom of Tonga and its citizens. Its mission is to coordinate and collaborate amongst the stakeholders to prevent through public awareness, detect, and manage cyber threats in the Kingdom of Tonga. The roles of CERT Tonga include the operations of CERT Tonga is guided by CERT.TO board, consists of MADEC, Attorney General's Office, Tonga Cable Limited, Tonga Communication.
Okay, next. Sorry about that. Let's look at the ransomware attack in Tonga with a focus on how did CERT Tonga respond to the incident, what are the existing mechanisms for this attack, who are the people we should go to, and what are the challenges and lessons learned from the incident. Our normal procedure, all incidents should be reported to us, but most incidents or attack are not reported to us, mainly because that organization don't want to report it, or it handled by internally by their IT staff. In February this year, Metusaloga ransomware hit one of Tonga's critical ISP, and this was reported to CERT Tonga within 3-day deadline from the attacker to the victim. Anyway, due to our limited resources, technical capacity and capability, as well as the fact that this is our first time CERT Tonga has faced such an incident, CERT Tonga reached out to other CERT in the region for assistance with information and procedure, and that is CERT New Zealand. Since the ransomware attack deadline was up, and the advice was for them not to pay the ransomware. Lucky for the affected party, their services were not fully compromised. However, the Tongan government requests emergency response assistance from the Australian government. Simultaneously, with CERT Tonga and CERT New Zealand planned bilateral meeting, CERT Tonga was directed to lead the coordinations and collaborations of the first cybersecurity incident response teams to Tonga, consist of teams from Australia, New Zealand, and Tonga. Cyber CX and the rest of the team from New Zealand, from Australia, were responsible for the investigation, recovery, and restorations of the affected parties' services. CERT New Zealand then focused on conducting training to ICT staff from government ministry, public enterprises, and private sectors, as well as the affected parties' staff. And they also provide assistance, advice, as well as communications. The Digital Transformation Department operates under the Prime Minister's office. We're focused on consultations with government ministry to see what their knowledge of ransomware is like and what methods they will use to safeguard their systems in incidents like that, as well as to check on critical networks. And they did this in collaboration with Tonga. And this consultation session was before the arrival of the Australian team. What are the existing mechanisms for this attack? Well, yes, threat intel about ransomware attacks included in most of our awareness session to ministry, public enterprises, and private sector. We do have SOP in place, but there was no SOP in place specifically for ransomware. With that assistance from Cyber CX, they could assist in providing additional mechanisms to our current SOP. With regards to with regards to prevention method, we did and continue to re-emphasize in awareness sessions some of the cybersecurity countermeasure, such as don't click on unknown email or link and do not open attach, disable remote desktop protocol unless it is used VPN, update and patch software applications and use licensed Chinese operating system, backup files using the 3211 backup strategy. So 3 copies of data, store a backup copy of 2 different types of media, keep 1 file offsite and 1 copy offline. So as encourage them to close unused ports and scan USB drives and disable USB drive. For response to the attack, during the attack, we'll record evidence and document, shut down infected device, unplug and disconnect from any other device, so as changing administration password and other important password. And for recovery, we have to check backups, ensure it is not affected or compromised, ready to restore information, wiping and go-relatedly formatting all affected drives and device, which is the best way to remove ransomware, and so as restore your information. But remember, we encourage to check backups and clean if it's clean and not compromised. For the way forward, we're planning of developing standard operating procedure for ransomware attack, revise and exercise it with training practice. The second one is notifying and report. It is a critical, if it's a critical information network and holds sensitive information, which is part of the government supply chain, you need to report the incident to regulators. As we all know, documentation is vital. Documenting procedures step by step and mechanism in place, so as disaster recovery plan and business recovery plan is important to do documentations. The third one is to have an information security policy and classification of handling of information is something that we look up to, and that will be cover the information from data rest and transit and up to end of life data. So is looking at having other standard guidelines, documents, and procedure to support that information security policy. Not only that, but to continue the awareness and encouraging people never to pay ransomware. It is no guarantee that, and encourage them that there's no guarantee your file will be restored, nor their words that they will not publish your stolen data or sell it for use on other matters or criminal activities. So it's important for them to make sure that they don't pay for that one, for the ransomware. Finishing the challenge of limited numbers of staff, a lack of technical capacity and capability, and a lack of equipment or resources to handle cybersecurity incidents is always there. But to combat cybersecurity incidents with a mechanism in place or a limited resource we have, that is what CERT Tonga is focusing on, such as conducting more outreach programs for the public, to facilitate more capacity building trainings. And the most important one is strengthening our engagement with our domestic, regional and international partners or stakeholders. Because with that strong relationship, collaboration come in, and that is what makes things easier for our involvement in handling the ransomware attack, is through our collaborations and coordination with the teams from Australia, New Zealand, and our local team. I believe that will do for any incident in the future. To finish off this presentation with one of my favorite quotes, it says, "The stronger the ties of fellowship and solidarity amongst men, the greater will be the power of constructiveness and accomplishment in all the planes of human activities. So powerful is the light of unity," Baha'u'llah declares, "that it can illumine the whole earth." Thank you.
What a great presentation. I don't always get to hear much about the incident that has taken place and the details on that. And Brenda, that was such an impressive presentation. Thank you for the details of it. I think a lot of us are going back home, learning a whole lot more on just that topic and that incident in Tonga. But before we go into discussions, I need to acknowledge that, Brenda, you have been with CERT Tonga for 5 years. Yes, I mean, women in cyber pioneer here in the Pacific. Come on, yes, and you've stuck to it, and you know, this presentation, it's just amazing, and you're part of the success stories that come out of the Pacific that we want to keep hearing more about. So thank you for that great work. Thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
I want to go down to, you mentioned one of the things that you found during the incident was the lack of SOPs. For those who don't know SOPs, we like to use a lot of acronyms in these discussions, standard operating procedures. And I think that a lot of times we find that when there is an incident, we probably don't have a policy, a strategy, or any operating procedure around that. And I think that this is a classic example of, we're going into these discussions because we're collecting stories from the Pacific to put into the best practice forum on cybersecurity. And we're taking these incidents from the Pacific. And, we're talking about the internet governance. First of all, this is Brenda's first internet governance forum. Brenda, I hope that this is not the last time we see you. We want to see more of you. Yes. And we want to hear more stories coming out of Tonga.
Thank you.
We want to take these stories and put them into the best practice forum on cybersecurity, which you will be hearing more about it in Kyoto in Japan in October. And I think that in the essence of the theme for this Internet Governance Forum is Asia Pacific ready for the next phase of the internet? And we've discussed from a process perspective, from a connectivity and development perspective. What about from an individual perspective? How many of us here actually have an idea of what you're going to do if your laptop gets hacked or with ransomware? Anybody? Brenda, I had a question, and I know I promised that I would not ask you plenty questions. It's just one question. And it's really around what we want to know was, we know that we talked about, we're collecting this information to put into the working group that's collecting stories on ransomware attacks. And we're looking at the impact, and we know that there was a big impact. What was the impact of that to the users? Was there, you mentioned, I think you mentioned earlier that the community was surprised with the attack. And I think that that's always the case. We always think that, oh, we're safe until something happens. But when something happens, we actually surprised that it actually did happen. Yeah. So Brenda, did you have anything to say about that in particular?
Thank you, Cherie. I think the case back at home, the most people or community that they shocked when this attack happened are the IT people. Mainly is because they understand the situations and they know what is happening out there. But I think if what happened was affecting the user or the customers of that organization, that will be a huge impact to the public or to the rest of Tonga. But as I know, for what happened, it's mainly the IT people that they got shocked. I think the public don't really get what is happening because they were not really affected. So yeah.
Thank you, Brenda. Before we go on, I just wanted to acknowledge my online moderator, Klée Aiken. I can see that there's something activity going on there in the chat. Klée, did you have any intervention or questions coming up on the chat from Brenda's presentation in particular? You're saying no.
Nothing at the moment, Cherie.
Thanks, Klée. So then we'll go back to the room. Joe Benz, I see your hands up. Hello, Joe Benz, please introduce yourself. The mic is right over there.
Hi there. Salafalava, Malo Lei, Malo Apito, Brenda. That was a lovely presentation. It's good to hear what CERT Tonga is up to and your your community work and what you're doing. I have a few questions. Not just one. I have a few. Sorry, my name is Joe Benz. I'm from Samoa. So I'll just shoot it out. So first question was how easy was it to reach out to the other CERTs? Did you find any challenges reaching out to the other CERTs? The other question is, do you have any local?
One question at a time, Joe Benz?
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
It was not hard because we were planning of having a bilateral meeting ahead of what happened. So once the attack happened, it was the only organization that comes to the team's head is to reach out to the CERT New Zealand because they will be the first team get into Tonga, even though they were planning on something else. But
okay, thank you. You mentioned something about the limited capacity of CERT Tonga, technical as well. Do you have any experts on island that's in the private sector?
Return to.
I guess my question is two-way. Do you guys think that reaching out to your own local people that had the capacity to help CERT Tonga, is that something that you might think of using in the future?
Yes, that is something that we are looking to do in the future is to revive the Tonga cybersecurity community. We established that before, but I think most of the people involved are busy with their other priorities. But what happens, it's really encouraging us to revive that community, because we believe that will be where we go to if something happen again in the future, is to use our local expertise.
Okay, thank you. I think that answers all my questions. Malu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe Benz. Next.
Hi, Jane Smith from Outer. I was just thinking about your comment about the Tongans don't necessarily see this as an issue for them. And one of the things we've been having in Australia, particularly in the last few weeks, is lots of media stories about people losing their life savings through fishing, etc. And I think possibly because some of the AI has now got into the fishing, it's actually getting harder and harder for people to know what it is. So I just wonder how that would translate into a Tongan arrangement, whether you've got these horrible stories that are about to happen for you.
And not to put Brenda on the spot here, but there are other Pacific Island country representatives over here that might be able to put this question in the form of view of in your country. We're probably not ready, and yes, we might have a situation where we will end up having these sort of issues in the Pacific, and the communities, the people, the end users are not ready for it. But Brenda, did you want to answer that, or should I put it back to the floor?
I'll put it back to the floor.
Okay.
Because I'll be the same with you. We're not ready.
That was a great question. Joe Benz here again. Sorry, my background is in cybersecurity as well. We do a lot of work in cybersecurity in Samoa. I have here on my right is Principal Officer of Samoa CERT. And we work closely with the government. That's why I asked if you have any experts in the private sector that you can reach out to and to assist you guys. So we work in collaboration with the government of Samoa. So we're the dark side, as people say, that we're in the private sector. But to answer your question, I think a lot of what we're doing right now to combat AI through spams and phishing attacks is awareness. We're doing a lot of capacity building. Our company is work with private organization in building capacity of the users. I guess that's the main target that we're trying to get to, is so that the users are aware of what a phishing attack is, what it looks like, to have them know that it can be in Samoan as well, not just English, not just broken English, but also in Samoan language.
Yeah. It's the same with us.
Thank you, Joe Benz. Fonoti, you had something to say?
Yeah, just to add on it, like we just had our roadshow, which is the first community awareness. We just want to see what is the level of their knowledge and skills in terms of cybersecurity. But actually what their people need is the computer skills with the literature, how to do the settings of those simple cybersecurity. So if we believe that if we build their capacity with those basic skills, then by the time that this AI will implement in the Pacific Island, then they will easily adopt those advanced technologies. So, but for now, we are working on to build their capacity in, especially the grassroots level. As Chopin's mentioned that currently the CERT is, because of it, what happened in Tonga and Vanuatu, that is a wake-up call for Samoa before it reach our shore. So now we start the training, the capacity building for all the IT officials in government, including the private sector in terms of technical training, the incident response, just to ensure that because we don't have resources, reduce of the impacts during cyber attacks is our priority to reduce the impact and the cost, the resources. So now we're working together with the private sector, train them in case of cyber attacks happen in Samoa. At least we can call them for help. If we don't have the capacity, we can also reach out to the global collaboration in first, CERT New Zealand, ACSC for help. But we ensure that we work together with the private sector first to find the solution for it. So currently, we're doing training for the IT officials for cybersecurity with the help of the ACSC and the CERT New Zealand. And same time, we also build the capacity of our grassroots level people with those basic community, basic cybersecurity skills. Thank you.
Thank you, Fonoti. I see a question at the back, but I thought I'd bring a friend back onto the spotlight a little bit. I am reminded that there was an incident in 2021 in Samoa, Chobens. Is it something you'd be able to talk about?
I'm not there.
Yeah, the incident in 2021, it's only 7 computers affected, and that ministry is not a critical infrastructure. So it's also a lesson learned for us. So now we're working with the risk assessment, and also we identify our critical infrastructure. So we're so thankful that in the incident in 2021, it's only 7 computers affected, and it's also ransomware. So by that time, it was handled within the MCIT, the MWTI, and also with the help from the Trustway, which is under the DFAT contract at that time. So it's not, the impact is not really that big. And also that was a lesson learned for us to prepare our IT government. And the root cause of that one, it's shame, like, you know, it's because it's very simple. It was just the antivirus. So that's what we believe, the building the capacity of our IT officials, it's very important. And we also identify our critical infrastructure at the moment is one of the things that we can very highly consider now. So the incident in 2021, it's because the antivirus for those computers connecting to the network, and it was handled by the MCIT administration at that time, and also the ministry, and the incident was happened. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Fonoti. I think we had a hand up at the back.
Hi, Dave from APrIGF. I, much like many of my colleagues, do a lot of training in the Pacific. And one of the things I've noticed is that there, especially within government departments, there's a fairly hierarchical structure. And what tends to happen based on feedback from my workshop participants is you'll have someone at the top ask for something or access to something. And through that access, a breach occurs. Now, these people who are responsible for, you know, handing out access to resources don't feel empowered to say no, or why do you want this? What can be done to try and sort of change that mindset, I guess, within, which has probably been through culture for years, into a cybersecurity mindset of ask the question first, why do you need the access? And I guess that can be from anybody from the islands if they want to talk about this, because it affects everybody.
Do we have anybody from the islands that want to talk about that? Soren, yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Swaran. I'm from Fiji. I am an academic from Fiji National University, and one of the core things that I train and teach on is ISO 27001. And my team does consultancies on SOPs and policy making for ICT generally. Further to that, we are also custodians of ISO standards in Fiji. So Brenda, first of all, a massive congratulations from all of the Pacific Islanders. And as a woman in ICT, I'm extremely proud of you.
Thank you.
Having said that, I think Tonga has already set the benchmark. And there are many Pacific Islands, I'm not going to name my own, that, there's just so much that we have to learn from you, and also from Samoa and Vanuatu. Personally, in my experience, to answer that question, what I have realized is that in organizations, there are still lack of ICT policies. Data policy information. You'd be actually amazed and surprised at how many huge organizations still don't have an information policy. There are gaps in the Privacy Act and in the Information Act, and there's a very thin line of difference between both. However, there are really gray areas. So I think this is a problem that needs a holistic approach, because the legislation needs to be fixed as well. And people need to be part of the legislation making process. For example, the Cybercrimes Act, Cherie, if you remember, we all contributed to the Cybercrimes Act being finalized. And then whatever contributions we had, we actually saw it in the 2021 vision. So people need to be part of that multi-stakeholder process that we advocate for. And it's everybody. Just this morning, we had another conversation with having youths involved in this conversation. So because ICT affects everyone is a gadget user, we need to be part of that conversation. But in organizations, going back to that question, in organizations, if we have a policy, no one is above the policy, be it the CEO or anybody for that matter. So I believe we need to start strengthening our organizational policies. And if there are gaps, like what we do is we go and train organizations, we go and train every staff member who is going to be using the digital spaces provided by that organization on what the consequences are. This is how long you can get jailed for, actors arrears, and all that, all the combinations. So happy to speak on this later on. I don't want to take up all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Swaran, and thank you, Dave, for that question. Realistically, in the situation of Fiji, I can identify with the hierarchy. We have an old boys network that is really strong, and because of the different levels of government that these old boys could have been, because you're an old scholar from somewhere, nobody's going to question you on why you need it. It's because you've asked for it. It's going to take, whether it's the formal channel or the informal channel, something will get across to you in some way. Did you have a follow-up question?
Well, not a follow-up question, but a comment. So it's not necessarily about the policy. You can have all the policy in place, but if somebody is in, I'm going to say a C level within a department or a business, and they're talking to somebody who is entry level or level 2 systems engineer, and that C level says, I need access, they don't feel, policy or no policy, and I mean, this is the reality, whether there is a policy or not, they don't feel that they have the right to say no. It's a culture thing that I have seen everywhere.
Yes, it is a culture thing, and we're probably not going to be able to have workarounds that either, and it's probably going to stay around for a long time as well. Thank you for that comment and observation, and thank you, Swaran, also on that intervention regarding policies. It is true, a lot of organizations don't have policies in place. Did we have? I see somebody waving, but I'm not sure if they're waving to get my attention.
I've got the mic.
Okay.
It's Noya from Tuvalu. I would like to add on what Dave was saying. I think we need to change the culture of how you deal with executive, middle level management, and the lower staff management, because I feel what you, like, I know what you're saying, because if a minister comes down to me and say, give me that information, you are obligated to give, but then we don't follow the policy. The policy is there. So what should we do? We should advocate at the higher level. We should provide awareness and encourage them to follow the policy, because if we keep on doing that, this culture will go on and on and on, and then we won't solve anything in terms of cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you, Noya. And also, as like Soren said, we need these policies. We need discussions around who and what and how and what level of information can or cannot. And if it is breached, then what, we're going back to what are the procedures in place. Did I see another hand up, or somebody just? We have about 11 minutes left for this session. Klée, do we have anything in the chat from anybody online? And I think, Klée, maybe everybody wants to hear your voice, so maybe we'll have an intervention from you while we're waiting.
Hey, everybody. No comments at the moment in the online chat. Thank you guys, everyone, for your interventions and presentations so far. I guess I have a bit of a question for folks in the room. We talked a bit about a few incidents, so the one in Samoa, the one in Tonga, and kind of looked at it as from an incident perspective, from a technical perspective and a response perspective. But I was wondering if anyone had any thoughts on the kind of human impact of these incidents, whether services were impacted and how that flow-on effect impacted the wider public, and how we can shape up specific policies to really incorporate that view of the human elements into response for these sorts of incidents, because unfortunately it's becoming increasingly common to have particularly these ransomware incidents impacting and focused on government.
Yes, Joe Benz. Joe Benz, I also request that you please join the best practice forum on cybersecurity for the internet governance so that we can have all these stories there as well, please.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay, Cherie. So thanks, Klée. Hope you're doing well. Yeah. So that's a good question. Going back to the incident that happened in Samoa in 2021, I guess I wanted to touch about the after effects of what happened. During that time, we had an election on, and it was a change of government, and then the ransomware happened. So when the new government came in, they were saying, oh, they got in and deleted all the files. So this after effects of the ransomware took its own pathway and got into the news, and the news media turned it all around and said, yeah, the old government went in and deleted the files because of the new government coming in. I guess I wanted to point that out because it was a lesson learned for us as incident responders, and also the CERT team, is to look at the PR side of things. It's not just technical. So what happened there is that we didn't jump in front of the media before the news broke out, and that spun into a lot of after effects of the actual incident. So it's not technical anymore, but it's just trying to cover the tracks and all of that after stuff. Thank you.
Klée, I think one of the lesson learned from that incident is the establishment of the CERT, because the CERT was just established last year, 2022, just after that incident. So I guess that's the one of the lesson learned from that one is just for them to approve the establishment of the CERT. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I wanted to add one example of because we had an incident in Fiji in 2020, and it was right in the middle of the vaccination process. And so we had a lot of people getting sick and a lot of people dying from COVID, and then a lot of people lining up to go to get the vaccine, get vaccinated, but you had to register online, and that system went down, and it was chaotic because the the people from the ministry are sitting there in the tents for the vaccination, and they're sitting with their tablets, and it's just spinning and spinning, and the lines are getting longer and people are getting more frustrated. As a result of that, 3 years later, we still don't have a CERT, but there are discussions around incident response for critical national infrastructure, and those discussions are still going. It would be nice to have more people contributing to these discussions. I think as Swaran had pointed out earlier, but it's in places like this where we have these stories and we take them back home and put them in the context of how can we progress as a Pacific Island nation and be ready, because the internet it's already here. It's probably in every Pacific Island country. The awareness and the training came a little later. But it's not going away. I know a Pacific Island country where there was an awareness campaign a few weeks ago, and the villagers asked the team that was doing the campaign, please take away the internet. That's not possible. It's not going to go away, but we have to learn how to live with it and how to keep our families safe. I think we have in 6 minutes, do we have a question or intervention? 3. Okay, we'll start with at the back there, and then Sarai, and then Gina, and then we'll call it a day. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Muhammad Ibrahim. I'm just curious about, there was a group from Monash University, and I think they were called Oceania Cybersecurity Center, but I haven't heard. So I'm not really sure whether you are aware about what they do or whether you work with them.
Out of Melbourne, yes, the Oceania Cybersecurity Center is operational in Melbourne. We have a relationship with them from the cyber community here in the Pacific. We have discussions. I think a few of them are members of the working group on the GFCE for incidents response, and also on this working group for best practice forum. Again, it's when we have these stories come out, then we can have more discussions around how do we progress together as a region. And so the networks are there. It's just the exchange of information and how do we apply it in the context of the Pacific. Thank you very much for raising that, though. Was it Sarai? Yeah.
Thank you, Cherie and your team for this lovely discussion. I just want to add with the Pacific, this is from the Samoa perspective as well, from the National University of Samoa. Anyway, I'm Sarai from National University of Samoa, and I think with this issue of cybersecurity and having CERT in nationally and regionally, it's very important. But to mitigate what's within your organization, I think it's better to have risk assessment first internally before we reach out. This is an example from the National University. Then this is the first time we conducted risk assessment, things that we don't see that affect those little things. It's impacted a lot. So for example, because we keep the student information and we don't care much about it. Since we have the risk assessment, and then we see if we will infect the reputation of students if we don't keep that data right, if we don't protect it, if we don't save it, if we don't, follow the OSI level and security levels and all those stuff. So for my experience within university or academia environment, it's very important to have risk assessment first, and then we consider other levels. So when these type of threats and cyber attacks attacking our environment or our neighbor, it has a little chance. At least we do our work internally first before we reach out. It's good to have partnerships to explore more, but within your organization, everything starts from home. I like the session we had this morning with Raj and Noya, digital environmental sustainability. Everything starts from home. Why are you changing your phone if you still can use it? Your phone from 6 years ago, it can, it can manage, you can do your work. Why are you trying to upgrade it or to something? But everything is there. Why are you solving a problem? There's no problem. So that's my point of looking at this. Yes, we live with the internet, we evolve with it, but you need to be careful and we need to have this digital literacy, how to read it and how to adopt it. And that's the big issue, is the adoption of this technology. So my 2 cents, have the risk assessment and then look and explore more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarai. And I think with risk assessment, we need more community champions like Sarai and Joe Bands, you going up to decision makers and saying, have we thought about a risk assessment? Can we consider doing a risk assessment? Gina, you had your hand up? And I'd like to hear more about that risk assessment at some point. So I'll be coming to you soon. Thank you.
Bula Vinaka, everyone. Just from the Fiji perspective, working across 2 sectors, very different, banking and health. Banking takes a lot of security is paramount, especially when it comes to money. So technology, in terms of framework, they use ISO 27001. Best practices, they're always doing that every day. But when I moved across to the health sector in government, just to help out with the work that I do and the development of the digital health strategy, then I realized that the critical infrastructure component for health was really not at par with what we see in the banking sector. And mainly because there's not enough awareness or not enough resource mobilization in that area. So one of the 2 things that had happened in the health sector was the cybersecurity incidents that occurred for whole of government. And it was the road to recovery or the response time back to getting the data, patients' data back online and being able to service the health sector component. So that's a perspective that I think we need to continuously in the cybersecurity arena, really focus as well on the recovery of data, critical data, that critical infrastructure to ensure that the country is able to service things, the response time of recovery to ensure that the patient's data is highly secured. That's a perspective that I think we also need to, in our literacy, also encourage and ensure that the organizations are also doing their data backups, data response times to incidents, so that we can also help in continuously giving service delivery. So those are just the 2 differences that I see in 2 very different sectors, but very relevant, I think, in terms of from the Fiji's recovery to getting that data back online. So with that, thank you, Cherie.
Thank you, Gina. And I'll be putting on my UN IGF Meg hat to say, can you please join the best practice forum on cybersecurity with that intervention? I can see that the red lights have gone off over here. I just wanted to, from my online moderator, just make the announcement that there is a first symposium happening in Vanuatu in a couple of weeks' time, where we're hoping to have more discussions on this. You can find me online somewhere if you want to add any more stories to this discussion. We need your stories because we want to take these specific stories and put them up on the global platforms and have more discussions so that we can progress as a region. Thank you very much, Brenda, for that amazing presentation. Let's give it up for Brenda for the good. Thank you to everybody else in the room who has contributed today. We will be collating all this and we may be coming back to you for some validity checking and verification. And thank you also to my online moderator who's I think he's probably gone to do something. Thank you.